Welcome back to another episode of Say Yes to Travel, where we have been interviewing professionals from around the world and hearing how they have been adapting in the past year. Now, today's episode is really interesting because although they might not work directly in the hospitality industry, what they are doing directly impacts the hospitality industry. So I'm really excited about that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I've got Dr. Geoff Trenkel here and Lauren Trenkel, who is a physician's assistant and has a master's in public health. And they have both created TTS, which is Total Testing Solutions. Basically, they have created this to bring customized medicine-driven solutions to COVID-19 testings for individuals, families, and businesses. And they also have developed Link, which we're going to talk all about, which is an end-to-end software solution that enables events, hotels, and the travel industry, ding, 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 us, to stay on top of testing and adapt to safety measures and regulations. So that is a bit of their background. And thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're excited to be on.
Yeah, no, as soon as I heard a bit about what you guys were doing, I was like, okay, we have to have you on just because, first of all of our industries are so integrated, and especially what you're doing it has a big impact. So, but why don't we go ahead and bring just our listeners up to speed, and just for an introduction, could you share a bit about both of your backgrounds?
Okay. Yeah. You go first.
You want me to? Okay.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I'm Dr. Trinkle. I'm a physician. I'm a surgeon actually by trade, ear, nose, and throat surgeon. Myself and my wife and Lauren, we actually started a ear, nose, and throat practice here in Los Angeles about 6 years ago when I came out of my training. And we grew that business pretty quickly over those 6 years to be 6 different locations. And
we started with 5 employees, 1 location, and we grew it to now 6 locations and 80 employees.
Yeah, right around there. And so it happened really fast, and we started it kind of on the backs of providing kind of high-level subspecialty care to the underserved communities of Los Angeles. And so there was a lot of need, and so we filled that gap pretty quick. So that's my background as a surgeon, and then I'll let you.
So I'm a physician assistant. I have a master's in public health as well. Like my husband explained, when we came back to California after he did his residency, I left what I was doing in Michigan, which was primarily dermatology and urgent care work, to help him grow his practice. And I dove into the more of the business side of things, but my knowledge, obviously, in what providers need, practices need, really lended a hand in growing our business and supporting from that end of things.
Yeah,
the growth.
And she was quickly excelled into our as the chief operations officer of that company, and obviously having her background in both of those 2 things made it much easier to help with all the operations and the transitions. That's our background in the medical field, and then obviously the pandemic hit. And that's what transitions to our background now into Total Testing Solutions.
Yeah, so I would love to hear more about that. So let's talk about Total Testing Solutions. And yeah, kind of walk. I mean, obviously we all know, like everybody was affected over the past year, and so we were all kind of, had these moments to sort of pivot. So what inspired you to start Total Testing Solutions? And more so, how did you come up with the idea to create something that also impacts like so many other industries as well?
So like we explained, we were working in ENT, doing our day in, day out. COVID hits, affects everybody, all aspects, and life kind of almost, it felt like it screeched to a halt.
Yeah.
And in our practice, even it slowed down significantly. We went from being able to operate one day to being told that you had to stop immediately. Patients stopped coming in because they were fearful. we were really lucky that it hit in our practice at a time when we were actually really trying to transition into telemedicine anyways. So because we have this large outreach in the Los Angeles area, nobody wants to drive here anyways. We were already in this process where we could transition a lot of our patients into telemedicine, but we still have to see people in person. But that all slowed down significantly. We had this large outreach possibility with all of our providers that were now doing essentially nothing. So we have PAs on hand, physicians on hand, medical assistants on hand, and we're so slow as a practice. And we're watching essential workers continuing to go to work. And these are the people you hear about in the news. You know, they're the ones that they need their paycheck, they need to keep showing up, but they're the ones getting sick or dying and filling up our ICUs. And we're like, we have this conversation, we're like, we have to do something. So in my ignorance at the time in February of 2020, I'm like, well, let's call the lab, let's get some swabs, let's do our part. And they tell us you can have five swabs. You know, that seems silly. So then we start calling our other physician friends. Well, let's get them to reach out, and we'll just compile it all together and do what we can. And they would get one tops. So it evolved into us trying to network in any way we could to get any type of test at that point. We ended up, in a long story, getting connected to Rutgers, where we could do saliva testing. And we were actually paying for the tests ourselves out of pocket, because that's all we had access to at the time to make ourselves a legitimate company or a legitimate provider for these individuals. And we got our start there, just doing these saliva kits where we weren't getting reimbursed. We were paying for them ourselves and got that ball rolling. And eventually we worked our way into being, able to get in contact with labs who could get us swabs and could get us tests where we had that reimbursement capability. But
there was a very interesting transition at that time, because obviously we had our main business and we had all of our providers and all the healthcare providers that we wanted to continue to pay them and make sure that they all had jobs, on top of the fact that everyone at that juncture was the same level of expert in the pandemic. Whether you're an ENT surgeon or an infectious disease doctor or whatever, if you have a medical background at that time, nobody really knew anything about it. So like Lauren was saying, we wanted to transition and help in any way we could. So we used what she was saying. We leveraged the fact that we were starting telehealth to provide consultation to people and allow for some platform for them to learn more as best they could. And then the testing part of it was so challenging because, like she said, we couldn't get any swabs. So at one point we finally ordered some. We found someone that would sell them to us, and we ordered like 3,000 swabs, and we ended up finally getting them like 12 weeks later.
No way.
Starting custom every week, so we couldn't get them out. And then that's when Lauren found the Rutgers lab through networking. We just found a friend, but we ended up having to pay for that all ourselves, which was a tough decision at the time because the business itself was not thriving.
Yeah, of course. So that's so crazy. And I mean, it just goes, and you were catching it like on the early end of things too, which was so, did you have any idea that like maybe this could become as big as it did? I don't know if anybody did.
A lot of people ask. So when we started the whole venture, everyone was like, well, where is this leading? Where is this going to go? And I think that was the hardest question for us to answer at the time, because we were like, we're just trying to help.
It was kind of, at the very beginning, the answer is no. It was supposed to be a stopgap for the 3-month pandemic that we were all expecting,
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
It was really supposed to be like something to help out, especially essential workers, like she was saying, healthcare personnel, first responders. We just wanted to help get them tests, the people that needed it the most. Because if you remember at the time, we weren't even allowed to test
it was only for
we were only allowed to
a
test
small
certain
group of people.
That's right. That's right. I mean, obviously, based in LA as well, too. I mean, I remember at that time, especially when we're talking about like February, just at the beginning of March, and there was still so much up in the air.
Mm-hmm. And, so everyone always, do we have an idea of how big it was going to get? No. I would say the reality of how big it really became didn't even really hit us until a big wave in June actually came about. Because up until then, it was a steady wave that we could really, really manage. And then those big waves started to hit, and we were hiring now for this new adventure that we had taken on. And we were trying to keep up, and people were calling us. They were angry because we couldn't get them in fast enough, because at that time we weren't even doing anything but an appointment type. So
yeah, like when I say it was actually really crazy, because right after that first surge, our phone lines was the hard part. So Google ended up ranking our ENT practices, because we hadn't even formed the second part of the company, etc. So all of our phone numbers for ENT became COVID hotlines. And at one point we were getting 14,000 calls a day, and we didn't have nearly the bandwidth to handle that kind of phone call rate, because you're in ENT practice. So those are all like these problems that we never would have fathomed seeing coming. And, but then at that juncture, we kind of realized, this
is big.
This is big. This is something that's really needed. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, in the sense that this is just the general public trying to get a test, let alone what happens when the economy is trying to reopen, whenever that might be,
Exactly. And which is so crazy, because obviously now here we are, we're talking about this in April of 2021. And I very much remember being like in May, even parts of June, like, yeah, by like August, maybe September. It's like,
we were getting those questions. Yeah. Like, so we're going to be done with masks in like by the new year, right? And we're like, oh no.
You're like, I don't know. Don't think so. Okay, that actually brings me to the next question. So, want to find out more. So, obviously, very much you started as a way to sort of just be extra hands on deck to help those essential workers, those people that were out there on the front lines. And now, obviously, as things have gone on, and this has grown into what we have experienced it to be, how is Total Testing Solutions now helping? You guys are helping other industries. So you're helping like production studios, professional sports teams, even construction companies. Like, how are you working with them to help them get back to work safely?
So we had started with these local sites, and now we've evolved. What ended up happening, we evolved into getting phone calls where, more or less with construction, can you come on site, test people on site? We have all of these people that drive in from the Central California area, the East, Palm Springs, that area between LA and Palm Springs. It's a lot easier, instead of sending our men to all of your sites before they come into work, if you just come here and test everyone. That way everyone's safe on the job site. Is that something you can do for us? And in typical Geoff Trinkle fashion, he says yes, before we even have a chance to formulate a plan. So we actually spurred the whole pop-up testing idea almost overnight. Between that and then getting a production request, I think almost within the same week, there was filming they wanted to get back to filming for Bold and the Beautiful in a safe way. They're one of the first productions that went back to filming safely during COVID. And they asked us to come on set and make sure that we did weekly testing. Well, actually, with Bold and Beautiful, more than once a week.
Probably more than month. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that they could have everybody on set and even with hair and makeup and all the other people involved, tested and, at work safely. So we evolved all of those things into our new, what we call pop-up teams. And all those things essentially have survived through this entire time. And we've grown that business or that section of our business into the on-site testing, which we've utilized now even in the stadiums and with travel and all that.
Yeah, kind of, I guess it all piggybacked off of, we tried to stay as mission, or we have stayed as mission forward as possible. So all of our sites that we work with a lot with the California Department of Public Health and with the County of LA to help them open sites in areas that they need it. And a lot of times the other business side, I think, really just comes from requests and people seeing that and us doing work in the community. But now it's really evolved, right?
It's an outreach thing.
Yeah,
right?
Now it's a completely different animal because now we're trying to help businesses that weren't in any way essential. Now, as hopefully the pandemic starting to come more to an end and vaccines are more available, we've pivoted a lot of that work to try to help businesses kind of get back. And the nice thing is, like Lauren said, a lot of the experience came just from need. It's not as though we had time to really think about how to test, 25 construction sites in a day out of like the back of a van or something. It was like, no, they needed the help. So Lauren was like, sure, we'll do it. But when you do all of that and you've been on the ground floor testing so many different types of businesses, now fast forward to when people need a plan, there's pretty much nothing that people call us and ask us about that we haven't already done, And that's how with stadiums, with all these large productions, because before productions were maybe 100 or 200.
Now
they're
thousands.
in the thousands again.
Oh, sure. Yeah, everybody's ready to go.
So that's how we've really leveraged all that experience of like how you scale from 5 people to 1,000 people,
And we've worked at a time when the pandemic was at its height, when people were having positives all the time and labs were backed up, to now where we have more resources and things aren't as, not as many people are coming up positive, but you still have to take the proper precautions, right? So we've worked through it all at this point, and I feel like we have a lot in our back pocket.
So with that, just out of curiosity, I mean, how are you seeing, do you foresee a lot of these businesses continuing because obviously, on one hand, especially, speaking on behalf of Los Angeles, is that a lot of people in Los Angeles, I think almost like 50% of Angelinos are vaccinated or have at least had the first vaccine, which is pretty incredible compared to just seeing how things are rolling out around the world and certainly within the country. So as we're seeing that more and more people are getting vaccinated, are you still anticipating that these businesses will continue their COVID testing policies just to make sure that everybody feels comfortable in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, one, there's going to be a whole new way of doing OSHA compliance.
Yeah.
There's going to be a whole new way in which people view health and safety measures in the workplace now. The example I always give when I talk to people is Sue sits next to Bob in the office. If Bob's got a cough now, it's not going to be like, oh, Bob's clearing his throat. It's not a big deal. Now it's going to be like, oh, Sue's going to back up 6 feet and wonder what Bob has. So there's going to be, especially for the next few years, a heightened sense of what that person may or may not have in their surroundings. So I think from how comfortable people feel being back in the work environment, it's going to be a necessity. Do we need to have it every week? Probably not. Especially if everybody in the workplace is vaccinated and everyone feels comfortable. Then everyone may not be. Mm-hmm. So you have to find a way to get around all of the different variables so that everybody's comfortable and nobody feels this heightened sense of fear when someone has a cough or is clearing their throat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we also, it's very early, like you said, there's a lot of vaccinations, but this started in December. We don't know really all that much about the longevity of each vaccine. Will they require boosters? Will people get those boosters? And also, there's a pretty large movement, especially of the younger generation, about anti vaccine in general, or having some skepticism in general of getting it. So you can't imagine too much more than 80% of us will even be getting the vaccine just because of choice, not because of availability. And so, to Lauren's point, then, all that's personal health information. People aren't going to want to disclose all of that. So, we do really see testing as being something that's here to stay. We hope it is, not just because we're running a business, but because realistically, in the public health world, we all saw how far behind we were with the availability of testing. And that was for COVID, but that was for everything. It was a swab shortage does not come because we don't understand the virus. It's there because there's no swabs. So things like that, if we can really change the way we look at public health after this pandemic and the way that businesses look at things like testing, whatever that testing may be for, it's only a good thing for us just in general as a society to be more forward thinking with healthcare rather than reactive.
100%. And then even just bringing it back to the workplace, coming from somebody who worked in hospitality, that's a 24-hour business. And so the number of times that colleagues would come in sick, and we're not even talking about COVID, we're talking about just like a cold, or maybe even the start of a flu, and how that would just spread. But it was this part of this culture. It's like, you got to work, even through sickness. And it's like, now, hopefully, as people are understanding all of what we've seen, people will be like, oh, you're sick? Yeah, take your space, stay home, no
Exactly.
problem, for those businesses that require people to come in, and they don't necessarily work remotely, as far as having more of that discussion.
More of a checks and balances system in place this time.
Yes, exactly. Because I mean, there really is an element of, I mean, that we just all kind of got caught, like, not knowing how to sort of proceed, and we had to really kind of work our way almost from a negative point, and get caught up to speed to even then get on top of it.
Exactly. These people, we don't want people leaving work to go to urgent care anymore because they didn't feel good, but they'd already been at work for 4 hours, spreading whatever it is that they have.
Exactly. So shifting gears just a little bit, would love to, because obviously what you guys have done, I mean, is huge, and it's very much taps into an entrepreneurial spirit. It's like you saw a need, you knew that you were able to help, even if it was like, okay, this might be hard, I don't know how we can do it, but then you saw that need, and you pulled together resources to put yourself out there, and now it's become this completely different, evolved into a really thriving business, so to speak. So we've seen how your big pivot was creating total testing solutions. But for those that are listening, just like on a broader scale, what would you say, like, what lessons did you learn in the past year, or maybe even advice that to give to others that are, regardless of what their industry might be, are maybe they're still trying to figure out how to maneuver out of this. So any sort of advice?
I mean, the biggest thing is no task is too small, no job is too large, you're never above anything. The things that we have done in the past year, we've always kind of bootstrapped ourselves. Uh, we did a lot of that this past year, and every single month, every week, every day, it has been about what we need to do to change, what's evolving in our industry, and sometimes even if it started with us making that change and doing the first step, even at the top before everyone else, below us, we had to be the ones doing it. Even with swabbing, we were the first one. We were the first ones in hazmat suits out in the rain, quite literally, doing the first day of swabbing. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the hard work is really the advice we always give to people. There's nothing comes easy and nothing comes free. You have to put in the time. I think we've also always lived by the mantra that there is no such thing as a negative. Well, there are negatives, but we can always find a positive in any negative. Um, and so every time we see a wall in front of us, we just look at that as an opportunity to climb a little higher, and
Jeff's
find a
much
way
better
around
at
it.
that than me.
Well, I
But
mean, look, it's all challenging, but I mean, again, it's as you said, having this wall in front of you. And what my thought was like, oh, go around it, and you said climb higher. So
Yeah.
for
yeah,
everyone listening, it's about climbing higher. I think that was really, really well said.
Jeff's much better at just going for that wall. I sometimes have to take a deep breath
well,
first.
let's be real though. What happens is I see a wall and I go, oh, how do we climb that? And then I go, Lauren, I need to be right there. So I need you to figure out how to put a bunch of pegs in it so that I can start to climb.
So you can get up there,
And then
which is
she
great.
figures out how to do it.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how these great ideas happen, and they come out of moments like that. So okay, so quickly back to just let's talk more about the world of COVID tech. Obviously, what you're doing, you're so very intimately involved in it. What do you think, like just on a broader scale, what can we expect to see in the future of COVID tech, so to speak?
Yeah, I'll start by kind of explaining what we've done in COVID tech, which is part of our newest venture outside of just helping people with testing. Was when another problem that we found was that we were still relying on like our electronic health record system, and as you probably know, as a patient of any doctor, it's very hard to get your records. We still use fax machines. Nobody talks to each other. So the biggest problem we had is when we were doing a lot of testing for the community, we had no way to give people their results other than to put them in this clunky patient portal. So with the help of some friends that are in the tech space, we built a physical server in our office that allowed us to somehow take all of the data from all the different labs, put it into one place, and then automatically kick it to people so they had something they could use, to get them to the surgery or whatever. And then when we started testing for one of our professional sports teams, we came kind of under a realization that, and a lot of the construction sites, that we needed to evolve that server into more of a software as a service.
True software.
And so we built more of an end-to-end platform where it has a lot to do with, in the start, registering people, delivering results in the middle, and then digital health pass at the end. So that software is called Link, and that's what we're really using right now to help businesses and mostly like large venues, et cetera, to help them provide some sort of system in place to do not just the digital health. A lot of places have like the vaccine passes, but what this is for is to...
It's very customizable, so it's very open-ended both on the front and the back end of things, so that if people choose to use a particular lab that's not necessarily even associated with our company, they have the ability to do that. If they want to use questionnaires or different type of testing that might become available to us in the future that's not even here yet, we have the ability to put that into our software and then also kick it out into a different platform, whether that be associated with your seat in a stadium, associated with your plane ticket, or just the digital health pass that goes straight to your phone.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. And that's really, I mean, that's very like consumer, I mean, or patient focused, so really interesting. And it's smart because again, like you bring up the whole notion of we've all have, we either, people would ask you like, oh, have you had this vaccine? And I'm like, I can't tell you the last time I had like a tetanus shot or something,
Yeah.
which is like most people can't. Like you're like, I think I did. I don't know, in 2007. I don't, like what is that? So this is so great to be able to have a lot of this information at your fingertips. And then will it be that basically different, I guess, like offices would be able to send that information there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we run it in two different ways. One is when some businesses want no part of their employees' personal health records, they just want to know if they're clear for work, whether that's because they've been vaccinated, 2 weeks post second vaccination, whether they've had a test in the last week, whatever they want their system to be is customizable. And then other tenants or other businesses want the information so they can get consent, from all of their employees, and they can house it so that they can make sure each department is safe, or how many people are vaccinated in this department versus that department. So it's really customizable to the end user. And that's what, again, because we've been doing all the testing ourselves, when we were developing the software, we developed it with that kind of all those problems in mind, versus other people that are creating vaccine passes, et cetera, are really just probably trying to create a digital pass. They don't think through all the nuances that go into a different business tests different than this business. Travel's different than a sports event. There's so much nuance.
Or how
there.
much information to share. Just whether it's kind of like they're good to go versus like the exact details of what they got, when, date, and that, which, that is personal information. And so it's like, how much can they share, whatever that threshold is. So yeah, it's great that you had that insight, obviously, because of what you guys were already doing.
Yeah, like with everything, it feels like this constant natural progression towards something new. And so we're excited about tech in general meeting the medical community, just because COVID has really opened the tech world's eyes to how antiquated medicine really is when it comes to technology. And it's also hopefully opened up medicine's eyes in order to for us to realize as physicians that, hey, we were ill prepared for an event like this. So we're hoping that the two worlds will start to collaborate more and bring more tech into the medicine with the help of physicians, PAs, and healthcare providers, so that
they can't just be one. Yeah. Like the nerdy software folk can't do it without the nerdy doctors, and the nerdy doctors can't do it without the nerdy software folk.
And all working together can help society get back to functioning, which is what we all we already want. So to quickly kind of just tie it back into sort of travel and hospitality, because we've certainly touched on it, and you touched on this a bit. Certainly in that travel hospitality space has been significantly impacted. But what major changes would you see continuing into 2021 as it relates to kind of like your world? So basically, be it the COVID testing, travel, hospitality, nobody's holding you to this, okay? But if you could kind of make a guess as far, or maybe not a guess, what you think things will be kind of moving forward. What are your thoughts? What testing here to stay, vaccine passports? What are your thoughts?
I definitely think there's going to be a level of a combination of vaccinations and testing. I think that there will be, it's apparent that it's going to be a country by country situation. Nobody's on the same page. Nobody's on the same page whether they're taking antigen tests, PCR tests, or vaccines. There's no communal, decision there. But especially with the variants that you talk about and people having different positivity rates, everyone's across the board, especially still, and we're in April, and we're approaching May of 2021. So I don't really foresee in the next year that just disappearing. So we'll be definitely still testing and utilizing vaccinations and vaccine cards to to travel around. Definitely questionnaires at the very least.
Yeah. At the very least, yeah.
I would definitely. I think we both foresee digital health passes in general, and we use that instead of vaccine passports because we don't want people don't want to be discriminated against if they don't want the vaccine, right? In any capacity. So with the digital health pass, if travel can be more open, and the hard part, as Lauren was kind of mentioning, is that there's nobody's collaborating country to country, state to state, airline to airline, etc. So what we hope to see, so that travel can really begin to open back up and tourism can get back to what it was, is that we can collaborate on some kind of digital health pass system. It's not going to come from one person, but just this is the norm. You either get this, or this to fly. And if you do that, you can travel more safely.
No one's going to force you to get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, then you have to do a PCR test. And if everybody's doing one of the following, then we know we're at least doing our best to stay safe, so we can at least get back to some normalcy.
Yeah. I agree with you guys wholeheartedly. It's interesting because I get asked a lot. They're like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think?" It's like, first of all, there isn't a unified system. Secondly, there are getting a vaccine. It is personal because who knows? There could be underlying things, whether it's an allergy or this or that or whatever. So it can't be mandated on everyone. Obviously, there's going to be recommendations. But I very much agree with what you guys are saying is that you kind of have like, you can either choose option A, B, or C in order to travel safely. And ultimately, I think that'll be kind of like carry us through the next couple of years. Hopefully but maybe that's naive to think that it kind of gets us through a hump of 2 years. We'll see what happens after that. But definitely it's been, it is nice to at least see now at the stage of things is that there is a little bit more mobility happening. And I think everybody's kind of itching to get back out there and people are ready to go back to work and all of that. So
exactly.
Yeah. Love that you guys said that. So to wrap this up, just want to find out from you guys. So anything exciting new that you guys are working on that's on the immediate horizon for Total Testing Solutions?
We're just going to be trying to work with companies to get them back in offices safely, open up some of the services that we can as a company since we've built such a large network now, and expand what we can offer. That's really
trying to add what we talked about with telehealth services and getting businesses access to better care, and then
the preventative health care that we've discussed, and that way we're utilizing even our healthcare system the way in which we were supposed to, and not using emergency rooms for a cough for daily visits, for true emergencies.
And then there's a few really high throughput testing companies that are coming out that are going to be really helpful that we're integrating into Link. So things that can do, thousands and thousands of tests in minutes and deliver results automatically. So for things like travel, transportation, venues, that's some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline,
That's great. Well, we'll definitely be staying tuned for that. Again, so amazing to hear what you guys have been able to do. It's certainly commendable. I mean, to be able to do that and have so many people benefit from it, it's great. It's incredible what you're doing. So with that being said, if people want to find out more about Total Testing Solutions or anything that you're working on, where can they find you guys?
Our website is totaltestingsolutions.com, so that makes it pretty easy. And link is at getlinkpass.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will definitely be sure to share those websites in my show notes. So for anyone that is tuning in and you want to find out more, find out a way to work with them, Total Testing Solutions, as well as even find out more about Link as well. The information will be in the show notes of this show. So that being said, thank you both, Geoff, Lauren. This was amazing. I really love this. Yeah, I already was having a bit of, hope and, being a bit optimistic about things, but hearing also what you're working on as well, too, just broadens the whole picture of just seeing how so many of us are working together to kind of, get ourselves to a different place with everything.
Exactly.
So really appreciate it. Thank you guys again. And for those that are tuning in, be sure to check out the show notes. We'll have all sorts of information here. This has been a great episode. You might even want to listen to it again because there's a lot of great information out there. So as always, thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget to continue to say yes to travel.